Okay, so joint ventures and creative finance. We've heard Matt talk, we've heard the brokers talk. There, it is a challenging environment at the moment to get lending, but it's just a challenge, right? Not impossible. And we've proven it time and time again. I like my own quote, which is, you don't get confidence from not doing something. So how do you get to a point of actually taking action? If you haven't got confidence yet because you haven't done it, then where do you get that confidence from? And for me, it's the confidence of knowing that I've got a network or a brain's trust around me that when I don't know the answer, I'm going to be able to go to them. So let's move through what I know about joint ventures. So what is a joint venture agreement? I'm not going to read that to you, but basically it's a business partnership. I should say, for anyone, I do have some slides coming through here that are a bit like text heavy. Feel free to take a phone, snapshot or screenshot if you want to reference it later, because I'm not actually going to read through everything that I've put into this. So where do you start with JVs? Look, as silly as that looks, show me the money. Interestingly, Belinda and I have actually done that when we got this motel deal, and we got to a point where it's like, we got a certain amount of finance and we got through our due diligence, but we were 400 grand short, and we had nothing to lose. We had this amazing deal, and because it was amazing, the numbers looked great, and we were actually at the mentorship for our property development, and we had to leave the classroom, and we just started making calls to see if we could raise $400, and in an hour, $400,000, I should say, and in an hour and a half, that's what we did. So you can do this, right? It is possible, but the deal will speak for you. But to be able to ask for money, and in particular in JVs, when I'm gonna start talking about this in the frame of, you've got the deal and you need a money partner. I'll flip it back later on about you being the money partner. So let's give it that context for now. So if you're the one that's out there that's, you've got to a point where either your capacity limited with your lending or serviceability or whatever you might be, but you still want to stay active, how do you start, getting yourself prepared to do JVs? Identifying your goals. To do business, you need to act professionally, and you need to be able to quickly and simply articulate what it is that you're doing and what you're trying to do. So you need to identify your goals, you need to know your strengths, and you need to have a plan. If you've got those things, and sometimes it takes, actually, I guess, writing them down or building it as a bit of a document. To get investment, being confident in who you are as a business and what you represent is the first step. When we talk about start, this is, I guess, where we, look at the fundamentals of property investing. So you've got your strategy, you're doing your training, area research, and then the transaction. So many people who go into property investment, us included in the earlier stage, we sort of had a bit about area, did a little bit of research, but just did the transaction. We didn't have any strategy, we didn't have any training, and so that's what limited us to just having art instead of a start. So if you've built your strategy, again, the important part of training here, if you want to go into JVs, do some training in JVs, upskill yourself, get information, reach out, have the conversations. Why I wanted to highlight the area and the research, as you start wanting to do the area and the research on the property, try and collate that information, because if you get to a point where you want to do a deal and having that information is going to be important. And I'll show you why in a little bit. So who are you going to talk to before going into, and this is, I've decided that I want to be able to do JVs. I want to prepare myself. This is the training part in some respects. You want to talk to your accountant. Structures, like Belinda and I, we had a buy and hold strategy, and that's worked for a long time. But we can see now that we need to improve cash flow as one of the ways, like we could sell property, but I'm rather like, if we know that our mortgages are now costing us an extra 30 grand a year because that's the difference in interest rates, the other way to solve the problem is just to generate an extra 30 grand of cash flow, right? And so I looked at it and went, well, we could just do a couple of flips, but we didn't necessarily build or have all of the background in that particular strategy. So the first thing that we did, we went to Matt and the PTR team, and we sat down and went, what do we need if we're going to start doing flips? And they basically went, we want to keep the structures that you've got in play for your buy and hold separate. So we'll open a new company and new this, and this is how you do it. So that's the sort of information, in preparing to go down this path. The other part is that it's also easier, I guess, to then start using a new structure to then start interacting with the other structures, the other companies, the other people that you might be involved with. The property lawyer and solicitor, you're going to need that relationship, contracts, and very specifically, you want that property lawyer, someone who's experienced in doing this stuff to support you. There's a number of them out there that are, I guess, dedicated property. There's also, people that have probably learnt the hard way that having an existing lawyer who maybe isn't a property specialist, has their own limitations. And then obviously the bank and the broker, you want to know what you can and can't do. For us, I had these 3 conversations, with the broker in particular about looking at our portfolio. What were we going to be able to do to bring to a JV? For us, we've got an unencumbered property. It's only worth, 250, 300 grand. But the conversation with the broker was like, okay, we could take that to one of the second tier lenders. They'll give you this much, but then they'll also secure, not only guarantee against that property, but the property that you're buying as well. So they gave me a really good understanding of I guess, the flags that I was going to be able to swim between. And naturally, your mentor or your network, anyone who's done this before, it's very much why, prior to the transition that I started to get involved in Property Club, was because I knew that there were JVs and people working in there. So that's why I sort of started to get involved there. I wanted to be around that network. This is my quote: for the right deals, the numbers do the talking. It's pretty obvious. You don't need to, the deal will sell itself. Smart investors can see your numbers, right? So what's important for someone, so this is a good understanding, what's important for someone who's, going to do business with you or want to do business with you? They want to know your exits, they want to know your guarantors, and they want to see proven track record. What's this all about? It's about risk mitigation, right? If you're going to invest, you want to know how you're going to protect those decisions and how you're going to get yourself out if you get some curveballs. And why talk about proven track record here? This is your proven track record, right? Talk yourself up. You need to be, it's a balance. I know you don't want to be too ego centric, but you do need to be able to sell yourself. And if you've got a proven track record, if you have done, I talk about the education importantly. Well, certainly Belle and I did in the early stages. Tell people that you're educated and how much you've spent on that education, because it shows commitment, right? And it shows that you're not just someone out there who's just looking for money. it's about credibility. An investor needs to trust you, and this is how you start to build the credibility for trust. Who do you want as a partner? You don't want to just go into partnership with just anyone. And again, I'm talking about you predominantly being the working partner, but as an investor, who do you want as your partner? Naturally, it would start with family and friends. And I know they can be a double-edged sword, but when you're talking about how safe someone's going to feel about giving you money, where you've already potentially established a trust or a relationship, family and friends have that. And like I said, our first deal was done with other people's money. A small portion of that came from family, and a decent portion came from friends. But the reason that they were able to invest in us was, firstly, the deal numbers spoke for themselves. So they could see they could get their money, and we still had fat and contingency in the deal. So that gave them security. But also, they watched us get educated and our journey. And so we were able to reassure them that, like we had all the, I guess, knowledge and experience and support to avoid failure is maybe where it starts with family and friends a little bit. But and they also knew that we had a portfolio in Western Australia, that if we really got in trouble, that was how they were going to secure their money back. Property investors, why not do business with people that are operating in the same space as you? They're a known quantity. They talk your language, they understand, and more importantly, that they know what you're doing, and hopefully, they'll trust you and what you're doing, because you're able to show them that you've got all of the bases covered, I guess. And sophisticated investors. So these are people that may not necessarily be property investors, but are investors, and so they know how to judge. They know how to do the numbers. They're really the people that you'd like to, I guess, be as or have as your partner, giving you money, your money partner. So being a professional property investor, and I'm really hoping today that this is some of the stuff that maybe you haven't seen, and ways for you to build your own confidence about moving into the JV space, or moving into working with partner space, and being a property professional is key. Image, although they might not say it, image is important, and so are first impressions. So let me show you how Belinda and I have gone about that. The first thing is branding, right? Invest in this. It's not a huge investment for those that are wondering. I know it's something that Kyra, Tim and I have talked about bringing into the Wealth Mentor group, is some information around how to develop your brand, some of the how-to of where to go. But if you have a brand, I mean, when you look at that, hopefully you're looking at something that is, I guess, presents a certain type of image about who we are. Now, look, we're at this point, we're like only 18 months into our property investment journey, but we built a brand and we got some branding, and I guess it just compared to other people maybe that might be out there trying to get JVs, it comes across with a level of professionalism. So if you haven't considered this, maybe give it some thought. Telp Projects, This Extraordinary Life Together, that it was about I guess sharing what our values were and how we wanted to go that. But it was very quick and easy for us to be able to show who we were, and hopefully reassure those that were investing in us that we were operating professionally. And that includes some photos, stage photos like that you can use. The other part is proposals, and this is as you get into that JV stage, and you're looking for investors. Now, depending on the scope of the project, we had a house. I think if I go back, the one on the left there, the Liverpool Street. Now that was only a $200,000 deal. So it's I guess information, its proposal was only about 5 pages. The one that I'm going to show you today is the actual 1.7 mil motel project that we did. So feel free again to take some screenshots of this as you're going, but I'm just going to show you a bit of what our proposal looks like. So, cover page branding, project overview. This is a good one to take a photo of if you're thinking about maybe looking at building your proposals. Just the contents page there shows you, I guess, the parts of a proposal that an investor proposal that you might want to build. So I guess they're the components. The executive summary, is really about talking about the project. You put as much information as possible. Use pictures where you can. They're always really impactful for people, rather than, because people in most cases aren't going to read every single word that you've put in here in their first instance. Once they've maybe got to the stage where they're preparing to sign contracts or enter agreements. Again, use the information. This is where I talked before about the area research and the things that you're collating. Put all this data in potentially for people that aren't property investors. Having this is somewhat of a reassurance. Show them the growth, show them the property values, explain your strategy, show them, returns are obviously important. If you've got different levels of projects or different exits, make sure you explain that sort of stuff. Highlight your team. Use other, brands and logos where you can, show the credibility of your partnerships that you've developed. Talk about yourselves. Talk yourselves up. Because people invest in people in a lot of cases, not the countries. And don't be afraid to highlight the project risks, because this is about risk mitigation, right? Like, if they can see that you're thinking about the risks, it reassures them that you're at least again, it's about trust. It's about how do you get someone to have the confidence in you to give you money, and making sure that you're not just showing the sunny side is the way to balance that conversation. I put this in again if you just wanted to take a screenshot of that, the parts of what a proposal might have. Not everything's going to need it. The other things we didn't show there, comparables, the financial feasibility and valuations, if you've got them, they're good things to include, because often they'll be a part of your due diligence. So you want to be the money partner, and what are you going to do if you're the person that maybe has some equity or has some some cash available, but maybe time poor, or in Belinda, in my case, like, we just really didn't want to do it. What are you looking for? Who are you going to trust to do the work? It's going to be, the professionals, the proven track record, and obviously the Wealth Mentor students. If you want to be the money partner, what's going to convince you to be that partner? And it's basically everything that I've showed you. If someone came to me and they had branding, they put together a proposal, they could clearly articulate what they wanted to do, they knew their numbers, that's going to fill me with confidence. I want to know their exits. I want to know that they've got probably multiple exits. And I'll also want to know, like, what are the risks and how are they going to mitigate those? So virtually it's just reversing everything that I've just showed you there, in assessing who to, to go into a JV. Proven track record. If someone has done multiple JVs before, or multiple JV projects, then, that I would maybe potentially reach out to one of their previous JV partners. I would say to that person, oh, look, can I talk to, the people from your last project? And if they're not willing to give up that information, or sorry, more importantly, they're going to ask for permission, which is fair enough. And don't necessarily expect that they're just going to offer up that person. But if you get the chance to talk to them, they're going to be the biggest, the greatest. They're either a raving fan or they've had a horrible experience, and it's a great way to understand, how well the partner might be. I've talked specifically about, well, actually, I just wanted to. So in every partnership, communication is the most important part. What you want as the money partner is regular updates. If you are the working partner, give regular updates. If it goes radio silence, that's when people start getting worried about their investment. Like, what's happening with my money? What's that person doing? Make someone feel comfortable, and communication, like always, is the best part to that. What do you need in a JV agreement? I'm not going to read all of this stuff. If you're interested, I'll give you a few seconds to take a screenshot. This is the sort of stuff that might be in a JV agreement. So I'll just give you a few seconds to look at that. I do have another page of this stuff. I've talked specifically about JV agreements. For your reference, we haven't actually made any actual JV agreements where the project has been a joint venture. We've gone down that path and we've offered people, and this is how the conversations can develop. I'll just change screen for you, okay? This is the next bit. We've started intending to go down the path of joint venture, so bringing two different entities together and buying the property. But where it's actually landed with both of our projects is as we've started to understand what best fits our JV partner, we ended up in loan contracts. So we ended up with just money partners who were like, you know what, for the risk mitigation part, I don't actually need to hold that property. We weren't leveraging off their lending or anything like that. So where we ended up was in contracts that were actually looked a lot like loan agreements. And so don't necessarily think that it has to be as complicated as bringing people in to get into the titles, to do settlement and all those things together. There are a range of ways that you can enter into a partnership that don't necessarily involve the full joint venture agreement. And again, that's about communication, right? Asking them what do they want. If they're like, I've got some money and I just want a return on investment and I don't want the complication of having to sign settlement contracts and loan contracts and all of that sort of stuff with banks, because that's what they would have to do, and you don't need them to do that, then yeah, get your property lawyer, draw up a very robust loan contract, and then you're just giving them returns on their money. And the way that can look is you can just pay them regularly, so we take your money and I'll start paying you a monthly, interest component, or you could all be capitalized towards the end of the project. And then there's two different ways to do that. I would suggest, and this is not advice, but if you're capitalizing all of the, return for the investor to the end, then that should probably be more rewarding, because it's a greater risk than if you are taking their money and then straight away paying them an interest component, because in a sense that's somewhat less risky. They're getting at least a portion of their money. So that's sort of the way that we've structured it. Whether that fits is for you is definitely going to be part of figuring out what the project is and what's the right fit for everyone. I just wanted to show you the value of investing, or being involved in the Wealth Mentor network. Interestingly, and you've probably already heard from Savannah earlier when she talked to Belle. So, and yes, obviously she did get mentored by Belle, but this is a proposal that she put together without any prompting whatsoever. So neither Belle nor myself had had told her or even suggested to her that building a proposal was a good idea. She was in her first project. She'd funded that herself, but she was like, oh, how do I keep moving? Obviously, being a part of the property club had showed her in the early stages of her investing that, joint ventures were an opportunity. So she kept making offers and she got one to stick. And what she was then looking for was for a joint venture partner. So she put this together, and she's given me the permission to share this. So she didn't actually go ahead with this project because she got into the due diligence and found that the numbers didn't stick. But when you look at the quality of the detail that she's put in, the numbers, the project, she's given you the background of the vendor. She's explained what the due diligence is that she's doing. She gave a spreadsheet. And she's also talked herself up there. Now she's done this on her own accord. This is basically her second deal. Who wouldn't want to partner with someone who had that level of initiative and could provide you that level of I guess information if you were going to enter a joint venture agreement with it blew me away. And if I hadn't probably joined, or if we hadn't joined the Wealth Mentor leadership, and trying to avoid obviously a conflict of interest, I would have done this deal with her. But look, this is I guess one of the values we're trying to bring to the fore with being part of the network and obviously Property Club and leveling up together. So hopefully anyone else out there want to do JVs with with Savannah. Hopefully there's a few. This is a quote from my dad. You'll only get out of it what you're willing to put into it. It's super cliche. My dad was a primary school principal. He had a heap of these. This was my life. Don't whinge about it. Do something about it. Never be a should have, could have, would have. So anyway, hopefully this just talks to, with any agreement or effort, you'll get back what you're willing to give. And again, this is sort of why I talk about I guess the effort, giving more than you get.